Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next The Shadow of Kyoshi chapter analysis video. This one's going to be for chapter 12, which is called The Fire Sage. So this is the chapter that brings us over the halfway point through the book. It's also one of the longer chapters in the books. It's like 30 pages long. So I'll do my best to get through this because it's not like super dense as such with information, but it is an important chapter to get across the simmering tensions in the Fire Nation between the Kyoshi clan and the Sowon clan, as well as a lot of other stuff. Of course, the chapter's called The Fire Sage. We finally get to meet the Fire Sage here, and it's pretty well done. So, again, I think I'll just go through this one in order. Is probably the best way to do it, because just a decent amount happens. It does kind of feel like a chapter that's like two chapters in one, in that they could have absolutely halfway through this chapter done a chapter break. One is the introduction to Nyahatha, and then the second one is the tensions that happen outside. But they put it together, and it's fine, fair enough. So yeah, they're going to obviously North Chungling, which is on Shuhan Island. That's Shuhon Island. And it's obviously, they later reveal in the chapter, this is primarily Kyoshi clan territory. So it becomes an interesting point in the chapter when the head of the Sowon clan shows up here later on. And continuing on from last chapter, Heiran is still sort of needling at Rangi, because Heiran cut her top knot off. She's more just Rangi's mother, and instead of calling her lieutenant, she's now calling her like young lady, and is sort of criticizing almost everything Rangi is doing. And we see that, I suppose when Rangi was younger, this is sort of what she had to deal with a lot of the time. A lot of criticism here. Your landing zone selection needs work. Heiran said, pursuing her mercilessly. Young lady, I've been traveling with the Avatar on Bison back since before you were born. I count 2 approaches from the downwind side and insufficient forage. Do you want poor Yin Yang to get surprised by rustlers or to starve to death? And Rangi's just like, we're not going to be here that long. You don't know that. So it's just this argument back and forth. And when everyone gets off the Bison, they're relieved to be off the Bison, because this has been happening the whole trip this time. Thankfully, the Fire Nation is much smaller than the Earth Kingdom, so it takes quicker to get to places. But they were there for like half an hour, potentially, of just relentless arguing between mother and daughter. So Kyoshi's just kind of like, are you okay, Rangi? Because she's clearly furious, about to burst into flames pretty much. And she's like, traveling with my mother is the worst. It's like being 12 all over again. And so Kyoshi asks, how did you manage going to the North Pole together? And Rangi's like, she was comatose. And she says it in such a way where Rangi's usually very respectful about these sort of things, but because she's so angry at Heiran, she very sort of glibly just mentions that out loud. It's Kyoshi's like, whoa, you are very, very angry here. So Kyoshi kind of calms Rangi down and sort of cheers her up, because they're obviously on their own here, they're not in town yet. She basically just picks up Rangi, swings her around to sort of embarrass her a little bit, and this gets her laughing again. So, that's the whole idea of, right now with everything happening in her country, with her mother, Kyoshi's sort of the only thing keeping Rangi sane throughout all of this. Yeah, pretty much after this we get the setup for meeting the Fire Sage. So this is what Heiran says. The man we're looking for is named Nyahatha. He is of the Banti tribe, though he prefers not to make that known. Out of respect, we should feign ignorance of his background. And Kyoshi's like, who are the Banti tribe? And Heiran's response is just, exactly. So this is great just by itself. The second I saw that Banti tribe written in the book, I was just like, well done FCE, well done FCE. I'm so glad that this is now, I suppose, officially in canon. For anyone wondering where we've heard this before, I think it was Mike on his website at some point during Korra put up a script because he described the process for writing an episode, and he used beginnings as the example. So we got to see an example of a script at some point in the process for beginnings. And of course the start of beginnings starts off with Korra having to being washing up on an island, and fire sages basically finding her, including a shaman healer, and lowering her into spirit water, so spiritual people. But not the fire sages from the capital. So who are these people on this random fire island? And in that draft of the episode, it was mentioned in sort of the script notes. Basically, Korra washes up on Bonte Island and is found by the Bonte tribe, the Fire Sages. And I think in the same thing, it revealed that the sages of the Bonte tribe are like basically the origin of like the sages from nearly all of the nations. It's known for being such a spiritual place that to a degree back earlier in the history, like sages from more of the other nations kind of almost come from here. So that's why this is actually very significant. They already said that he's a former Fire Sage, but he, as we'll get to here, he was set up to be the High Sage at one point until some Fire Nation politics got in the way. And he has the lineage to back it up. He's not just like an Earth Sage or some of the Fire Sages, I suppose, we see, where it's just more of a political position than an actual spiritual position. The people of the Bonte tribe are actually truly spiritual people. So I love that reference. I think it comes up again later on in some of the stuff, but it's very, very interesting. Then we get an explanation of North Chunling. They arrive in the city and they find out that, of course, one, Kyoshi has to deal with just how different the Fire Nation is to the Earth Kingdom, in that, yes, it's different because it's just smaller, and so stuff that affects the Fire Nation affects the whole Fire Nation. But also that the whole like prosperity of the Fire Nation thing is a little bit of a lie. It's the capital looks amazing at all times, and a couple of the other places that are doing well, but most of the other places are very similar to a lot of the places in the Earth Kingdom, where they're suffering, they don't have much to eat, a lot of poor people, and so on. And I really like that setup there of just it's Kyoshi realizing that she thinks the Earth Kingdom where she's from is bad, but a lot of the Fire Nation is much the same way. And so North Chunling is described as like a glorified gambling den, that it used to be known as a place where spiritual experiences were common, but now the town has sort of cashed in on its reputation, and it's more of like a fairground type thing of like fake spiritual experiences. And so it's a lot of people just, making it sound like they can give you a spiritual experience, but it's not actually the case. That's what Nyatha is actually here doing. You'd think an actual sage would be here trying to give people actual spiritual experiences, but he's fallen to this way of doing things as well. And I really like him as a character because he is that. He has the lineage, he has the skill, but he also has his own weaknesses, and he's gotten into this whole sort of disrespectful way of doing things here. It's kind of scamming people with visions, as we'll get to later on. So Kyoshi obviously notes the stuff about this is just as bad as the Earth Kingdom, and Rangi is just kind of like, I don't know what's happening in my own country anymore. Maybe I've been away too long. I feel like an outsider. She's just, a lot has happened to Rangi since we've met up with her again here in the book. What happened with Heiron, seeing just how the nation is sort of falling apart with the threat to the Fire Lord and so on. But this is where Kyoshi brings up, oh, Rangi, how have I never asked you what clan are you from? So Rangi reveals like what her clan is. So she says it's the Sei Naka. So it's the SEI''NAKA. Sei Naka clan. Our symbol is a stylized whetstone. We come from a tiny little island to the south of the capital. Sometimes it doesn't get included on maps made in the Earth Kingdom. It has no resources to speak of, so my clan exports the talent and skills of its members. We're teachers, bodyguards, and soldiers because we have little else to fall back on. If we're not the best at what we do, then we're nothing. So Kyoshi learns a little bit more about Rangi here just from her clan. And it's also this situation that this explains exactly why Heiron and Rangi are the way they are, why they're perfectionists, because they have to be. Otherwise, where they're from is a place known only for the skill of its people, not the place itself. So if they're not the best, they kind of aren't really anything. Their clan isn't really anything. And that explains why now that the sort of, headmistress-lieutenant dynamic between mother and daughter is gone, and it's back to being mother-daughter, they're sniping at each other over each other not being as perfect as each other. Obviously, Rangi has got to see a lot of Heiran's flaws recently, and now Heiran is taken to being critical of like everything Rangi does. So I really like the dynamic here that's going on. Next note that I have here is yeah, just before they meet Nyahatha, they meet the people, of course, here of North Chungling. And we see that they're so desperate to sell stuff to everything. They immediately see, oh, there's an air nomad with you. And we see how aggressive their selling tactics are. So it's like, Master, give me a blessing. Master Airbender, Master Baldy over here. And we find out that, obviously, it makes sense. The people of other nations, especially poorer places, view air nomads as being sort of lucky, a sign of prosperity. So if they can get an air nomad to bless them, then everything will work out well for them. And so Jinpa kind of reveals that, like, I'm used to this sort of thing. So he goes ahead with it and is said, may those whom this wind touches be successful in business and health. And he, sends out a big, like, minor gust of air across the area, and everyone rushes to be a part of the air so that they get the look of the air nomads. It's just a nice little scene, but they see that, okay, it's an air nomad, he probably won't have money. Oh, look, there's a water tribe person here as well. So Otuat gets the attention at this point, and they start bigging her up, and we know the way to get her to like you is to praise her, overpraise her. So they're like, water princess, queen of the snow, this way, come on. And she's just like, yeah, I really should be treated like royalty more. So they go off together. Jinpa is basically sent to watch Otuat. And immediately as he runs off, he realizes Otuat's ahead of him and is just like, oh no, that's our whole money. That's all of our money, isn't it? So it's a gambling den. So Otuat has immediately put it all on something here. But Jinpa is going to get it all back because he's basically a member of the Order of the White Lotus. So if he plays Pai Sho, he can get that money back. So that's a great little setup on that side of the story. So there's just a quick note of how is Heiran actually going to find out where Nyahatha is. So she starts smelling around the place, and they don't reveal at the moment why that is. So she finally sniffs out the right spot. It's a large tent that says Spirit Visions of the Future on the outside. So they walk in, and he immediately, when we first get introduced to him, puts on the full show like everyone outside. Welcome. Are you interested in divining the secrets of the spirit world? Do you hunger for a glimpse of the great tapestry of the future? Unlike what fraudulent soothsayers and mystics might claim, dear visitor, the power for such visions lies within you. For a small price, let me merely be your humble guide. And Heiran is just like, Nyahatha, it's me. And then he's immediately drops the whole act and is just like, oh, it's you. And so immediately these two know each other and don't particularly like each other. So what is the dynamic here? And we get like a page and a bit of just the two of them not really saying much to each other. And then he finally breaks the silence. It's like, why are you here? And she just says, Kuruk's reincarnation needs your help. Kyoshi does note about this specific statement. That was Kyoshi's least favorite way for people to refer to her avatarhood, as being, you are the next one after Kuruk. That being referred to directly as the one after Kuruk is something she doesn't particularly like, because we know she doesn't like Kuruk. So this actually gets his sort of attention. He's like, oh, he finally gets to meet the new avatar. So he starts sort of staring into her, and she notes like, oh, another kind of wise old man. Is he, like Lao Ge, going to immediately be able to see like straight through me? And she sort of realizes that that's the case, getting across that, despite the situation that he's in right now, is someone with information that we need. But anyway, so Rangi kind of wants the air cleared immediately. It would be great if Kyoshi and I didn't have to waste time guessing what problems you have with this man. So Nyahatha points it out. It's simple. The headmistress thinks I ruined Kuruk, and Heiran finishes it and says, and Sage Nyahatha believes I and the rest of Kuruk's companions did. So that is the situation that we have here. The two groups, basically, of Kuruk's companions. One was Kuruk and Nyahatha on their own, and then Kelsang, Heiran, and Jeonju. They are also being blamed for this. So who is more responsible for what happened with Kuruk? His early friends, or the fire sage he sort of ran with later in his life? So they each blame each other for this, which is why they have such an issue with each other. So very, very interesting stuff here. This is where it's explained the whole idea of, no. Okay, if you want to speak with Karuk, no fires in here whatsoever, because there's flammable vapors and gas around here. This town is built on a vein of flammable vapor. You shouldn't use firebending here. So Kyoshi actually ends up liking this guy a little bit because he has ultimately none of the sort of pomp and circumstance you'd expect of someone who's super spiritual. He doesn't speak about the spirits in such a highly reverent way like other characters do. He's very practical about how skilled he is in terms of what he knows about the spirits, and Kyoshi appreciates the sort of down-to-earth bluntness that he has about that. So this is where they begin to argue a little bit more about stuff. He notes that, Kuruk didn't meet a happy end, and neither did Jonju, if what you told me is true. Heiron then says, you fell to your own vices that you infected Kuruk with. And his defense against this is that I tried to make sure at least some of the emptiness inside him was filled with purpose. You who spent so many years with him, what did you produce? A good pai show player, some companions of the Avatar, your lot were. So that's very interesting that, like, Heiron and the others sort of blame Nyahatha for, I suppose, amplifying some of the vices that Kuruk had later in his life, but Nyahatha blames them for basically, did you do anything of importance when you were together as companions? In terms of making an effective avatar. So the sort of the two sides, I suppose, of being negligent. One is just, I suppose, just having fun but not doing anything of note. And then the other one is, I suppose, Kuruk, drinking and sleeping around, as we'll learn about later on in the book. And he got it from this guy, apparently. So they bring up Yun, and they tell him the whole story about Glowworm and stuff like that at this point. When she mentions Glowworm, he immediately is like, the curse strikes again. And this is what we get here. That name you bring across my door is some very bad luck. Kuruk tangled with many hostile spirits during his avatarhood, and Father Glowworm was one of the worst. He never fully defeated it, and after their battle it doomed him to suffer catastrophic fortune in the physical world. Anyone he told about Father Glowworm will be cursed in the same way. Anyone who even learned of its existence. I believe the intent was to isolate the Avatar from any allies he might call upon to help him defeat the spirit for good. Rangi doesn't believe there's a curse, but Nyahatha just sort of points out, why do people all across the entire world, all of the nations, pray to the spirits for the prosperity of their crops and stuff like that? Because there's some truth to it. So is it really that wrong that, like, a powerful spirit like Glowworm could have a curse associated with him related to his name? Because again, go back to the prologue. They specifically noted Yun saying Glowworm's name sort of unlocked a door that made them closer than they were before. And now we find out the full extent of that they fought each other and to a neutral situation that sort of stopped them each from being able to, like, do more. But in the aftermath of that, Kuruk couldn't pursue it anymore, because if he told anyone about Glowworm, they'd suffer incredibly bad luck. Very, very interesting stuff, and that's an important point to keep in mind for later on when we get Kuruk's full backstory, to touch on this curse aspect of Glowworm as well. But anyway, he then asked about Yun. Did your boy have any strange features when you last saw him? Animal-like parts of his body? No, not what I could see, but she notes that it was like he was making everyone around him sick and afraid. I was a little bit, like, weirded out here by, like, why doesn't she mention the fact that one of his arms is grey? They specifically pointed that out earlier in the book, yet not here. But I guess Kyoshi that's meant to link into the whole idea of, like, sick and afraid, that being the sort of thing. Nyahatha's response to this is, I've never diagnosed a case of possession in the flesh, but I suppose he could have a spirit's essence inside him. It's difficult to say. And Kyoshi just really wants to break the hold that Father Glowworm has on her friend, Yun. Nyahatha explains that he doesn't have the knowledge to sort of help Kyoshi fight Glowworm, because Kuruk was the one who confronted wrathful spirits. I was just his handler on those missions. So immediately, this is interesting because I think Heiron in an earlier chapter mentions that, like, Kuruk wasn't known for his, like, spiritual expertise. Yet Nyatha here is explaining that no, he confronted many wrathful spirits, highlighting that Kuruk is actually somewhat of a spirit expert to a degree. So Kuruk is suddenly seeming so much more interesting and valuable here just because of this fire sage and what he's revealing about him. So it comes down to, teach me how to communicate with Kuruk. So he agrees to this and says, come back to me an hour before twilight. And he reveals that we're not going to be using the gas like I do with my other customers to make them hallucinate a vision. Don't inhale it; it'll rot your insides. And Rangi's just like, but you use that with the other customers. Have you not been inhaling it as well? And he's just like, yeah. So it's just like he's such a weird character in some ways. But then they notice outside there's a bit of commotion going on. Sowan, members of the Sowan clan are in northern Chongling. So they watch from inside Nyahatha's tent as the tensions begin to simmer between members of the Kyoshi clan and the Sowan clan. So the leader of the Kyoshi clan here, his name is Sanshur Kyoshi, and they specifically say that's his name. It's the only character in the entire book whose name includes his clan, and they imply that he's the leader here on the island. They say he is the town's cotton merchant and the fair's main sponsor. So this is the fair, of course, related to Avatar Zeto, of course. And they reveal that the main member of the Sowan clan here is Lady Huazo, who's basically the leader, in a way, of the Sowan clan. Cheijin's mother, of course. So what's she doing here? So, of course, they both sort of put on airs to each other, just like, they're sort of respectful to each other initially, but he wants to know what she's doing here. This is not your territory. Why are you here at all? And she talks about all these letters that he's sent her that he hasn't responded to, and she asks him about it again. And he's like, to answer your inquiries, and it remains the same since the first time I gave it. It's a no. The fair is not for sale, nor the croplands. My cousins have agreed not a single square inch of Shuhan Island will ever fall into the hands of the Sowan. And she's just like, that's funny, because I just bought all of the salt mines nearby down the shore, as well as the guy who owns the salt mines vacation house right here in town. And immediately, it's just this incredible thing that he's just heard effectively that a member of the Kyoshi clan has sort of almost betrayed them, this agreement that they all had not to sell land to them, and they realize that, oh, it's happening again. The Sowan clan are beginning to sort of buy up sort of businesses and houses in the different areas, so they have more of an influence regardless of where they are. And yeah, so it just begins to build up, and Kyoshi realizes what's going on here. The reason they've made such a big deal, the Sowan clan, about walking into town and making a big show of things, is that they want the Kyoshi clan to attack them, so they are then justified in sort of counter-attacking. And the Sowan clan are in a much better position, so they would win any fight that would happen and gain control of even more territory. So they're just asking for a fight here to happen. And so they realize, we're going to have to step in at a certain point here to stop this. And it seems like they're going to go their normal ways, but then another member of the Sowan clan spits on the ground right in front of everyone and is like, Kyoshi's like, please tell me that is less of an insult here than it is in the Earth Kingdom. And they're like, no. So they all run out with the idea that, oh, the appearance of the Avatar, Heiran, Rangi, and everyone will surely bring a halt to this, which it does. Immediately, Huazu, of course, knows Heiran. Of course, Heiran is so well known because she's the headmistress of the academy. And it seems like they're going on. She calms things down. Heiran and Huazu are talking. But then Huazu and Heiran both notice once again. They remember she's cut off her top knot. She's honorless, effectively, at this point. So immediately the dynamic changes because Heiran isn't of the same rank that she once was. So she's not meant to be talking to a clan head, basically. So she sort of backs away, calms down. Huazu realizes that, oh, I'm above her now. And so she puts on this air of your failures. How fate and fortune rules us all. Heiran, honor is honor, but friendship is friendship. I will never disavow you, no matter the circumstances. She reached out for an embrace, and Kyoshi was nearly ready to change her opinion on the woman, but then Huazo used her extended hand to pat Heiran on the head like she would a child or a pet. So another incredibly dishonorable thing happening. So we cut scene here, and we cut to Kyoshi just looking over at Rangi, seeing her mother getting so disrespected by just getting a pat on the head here from people who, outside of the whole honor thing, are basically of equal rank. And it says here, Rangi was blank, zeroed out, a null in the ledger. Her gaze bored through Huazo and into the stars beyond. She wasn't moving, so she just doesn't know what to think of this. But what happens after this is that Kyoshi goes to talk to Huazo. So it's this thing of like, wow, like my son and I have both met the Avatar within the same like day or two. This is an amazing kind of blessing on our clan. And Kyoshi's very blunt with her, just like she's taken to being with Cheijin. When you write back to your son, give him a message from me. Tell him he makes a good fire sage and nothing more. And so Huazo immediately realizes that, oh, the Avatar's onto us. She is on Zoryu's side of things, and we have to work against the Avatar as well as everyone else. And so it's just like, the battle lines in a way have been set. The clans know whose side the Avatar is on. But what breaks up what is going to be maybe more aggressive stuff of maybe Kyoshi inciting a riot here, Rangi's actually the one to stop this by just screaming out Colin and hugging one of the female guards of the Sowon clan, who is revealed by Huazo to be, oh, that's my niece Colin. These two were in the same year at the academy. And she says here, the bonds forged in school over the anvil of education are stronger than any other. I'm sure you understand. With the subtext of that being that a Fire Nation noble is talking to Kyoshi about like, oh, you know all about education, don't you? When Kyoshi hasn't received any formal education because she's from the Earth Kingdom, and the way her life was growing up, she had no level of formal education anyway, similar to the Royal Academy for Girls. So it's this veiled insult at Kyoshi now as well. And so this is the Sowon clan's tactics in all of this, is these under the radar insults where they can easily defend themselves of like, we didn't mean anything by that, it was just a mistake. So the idea, as we get to later on in the chapter, is that Kyoshi basically is like, why can't you just Agnikai these people if you really have such an issue with them? And the idea is that, like, technically, according to the rules, we can't, because they can always talk their way around it not actually being a sort of breach of honor, basically. In combination with, I think it might be the next chapter or something like that, but I'll bring it up here. It's noted that you're not allowed to burn anyone during a holiday festival in the Fire Nation. So the festival of Zeto is on. It is they literally say it's a spiritual offense to basically Agnikai or firebend and hurt someone during a festival like this. So the timing of this is about the only thing stopping this from immediately being sort of a bloodbath, basically, here in the Fire Nation. So yeah, it's at this point, Rangi's calmed things down by meeting up with her old friend, apparently, and this basically forces everyone to move off. So nothing has happened here, but as Kyoshi, is watching them leave, Sanshiro Kyoso comes over and it's just like, yeah, you guys leave, and she just glares at him because she notes, of course, that the Kyoso clan were just about to chuck a bunch of rocks at the Sowon clan to start an actual battle. So she's just like, you guys can't talk in this. You were the ones about to fight a battle you were going to lose. Just note that, the Fire Lord doesn't need you starting the violence for him. It's great to show support, but this is not the way to do it at all. And as everyone kind of clears off, Heiran is just like the Kyoshi. It's not Sanshiro's men I'm worried about, as she glances over at Rangi. So we're kind of like, whoa, Rangi, she just basically diffused that situation. But Heiran can see, I suppose, deeper within her daughter than we can, and it's just like, yeah, she is a fuse primed to explode here, based on everything that's happened. Both Heiran's own actions and the reveals that have come out about her, in addition to the slight against her mother that's just happened here. Rangi is extremely frustrated about everything. So, yeah, we catch up with Otwat and Jimpa outside, and this is where we find out that, yeah, Jimpa earned the money that Otwat lost back with Pai Sho. And the only other thing here is that we get, yeah, Kyoshi wondering, like, oh, that girl you just hugged, one of your close friends from your amazing times in the old academy. Rangi's response to this is, Kyoshi, I was miserable at the academy. And it's like, wait, what? Because we didn't know this either. This is basically the backstory for Rangi we get in the book. And it's not too much extra information. It's more of just Rangi's actual feelings on the subject. Because in the first book, they just presented the idea that, like, yeah, like, Rangi was amazing. She graduated, like, first in her class at the academy early. And now we get the extra perspective of just, like, yes, but the way to view that is that Rangi succeeded so much at the academy on purpose so she would graduate early to get out of there as soon as possible. That's what informed most of it. And the reason for that is what was said in the first book, which was that in school there were rumors, everyone was talking behind her back about the actions of her mother with the Agni Kais and her killing people in those Agni Kais. And she points out that Colin, the girl I just hugged, was the one worst about it, because that's what the Sowan do. It's their signature technique, delivering insults with plausible deniability. There were some vicious little monsters at school, but she was the worst. And this is where Kyoshi points out, why couldn't you Agni Kai her? She was careful not to say anything to my face that warranted it. And that if she did basically choose to Agni Kai anyone, she'd be the one to look like a bully in the situation, so it wasn't worth it, unfortunately. Yeah, it would have reflected poorly on her as being the headmistress's daughter, and abusing her status. So Kyoshi's kind of like, but I thought the academy was what shaped you. And she's like, I did, but I wasn't happy until I left and found a purpose on the outside, serving the Avatar, as she sort of looks over at Kyoshi. So that's a pretty interesting one. After this, we just get a quick incident highlighting just how high tensions are right now in the town. We see someone getting attacked, and they're convinced that it's the Kyoso clan attacking a Sowan member, because that's basically what the previous scene would imply. But when they get there, they find out it's a Kyoso clan member that other Kyoso clan members are attacking. So what's going on here? And they mention, we caught this traitor putting up a stone camellia banner over his stall, and he's young, and his mention is just like, I just wanted some business, because they explained in the narration of one of the previous chapters that typically, like, the way they get business in these towns is that usually most of these these people, I think it was actually earlier in this chapter with the whole water princess thing, was that most of the merchants probably do have a banner with all of the main clans to try and get business, to, you know, make it look like they're really interested in business from a certain clan. So this is just a Kyoso clan member just trying to sell some stuff here, not making any statement about loyalty or anything like that, but they have to break up a fight between clan members. That's how much the Kyoso clan hate the Sowan clan. They're so eager for violence, and the chapter just ends with the idea of Kyoshi could see the grains of violence crystallizing into a fuller shape. Under their feet, North Chung Ling was priming to explode. So very, very interesting chapter overall. Meeting Nyatha, the fire sage, finding out he's from the Banti tribe, the teases further about, you know, Kuruk's backstory without going fully in depth. We're going to come back to that in the next chapter about, you know, spiritual exercises, about how she's actually going to get in touch with Kuruk. Father Glowworm's curse is an important point to remember. And then we saw Shaejin and his tactics with his brother in terms of trying to look good in front of everyone. But here's how the rest of the clan are doing things. Buying up land from wherever they can in other clan territory to sort of incite violence so that they can look like they're the ones just defending their honor when in fact it really is the other way around. So it's very clever on their part, but also very petty. That's what you learn here, is that this isn't some high-end political manipulation. It's just kind of thugs, you know, trying to get other thugs to attack them first. So Kyoshi is beginning to realize that the Fire Nation isn't as different from the Earth Kingdom as you'd think. Like, a lot of these dynamics, it's maybe a bit more intense, but it's the same sort of stuff that happens in the Earth Kingdom as well, just done in a slightly different way. The Fire Nation are maybe more quick to anger with Agni Kais, but because of the spiritual festival, they can't do Agni Kais, so it's more of just, let's have a big, you know, fisticuffs battle, because since the firebending isn't allowed, and so on. But we'll learn little more bits and pieces about that more as the chapters progress. But they're my thoughts on Chapter 12, The Fire Sage. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were, but that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.